Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Aleya, and today we'll be talking about two filters for your camera lens and why you should use them. Before we start this video, if you enjoy watching it, give it a like and also subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you stay notified when I upload new videos. The filters that I will be using in this video are from POLARPRO. I will put a link in the description so you can go and check them out. POLARPRO didn't pay me to talk about these filters, but they did send it to me for free. But these filters are truthfully my favorite filters at this point in time, quality-wise, and I will give you my opinion truthfully because I don't want to give out bad advertisement or comment in bad light. So I am really selective about everything I talk about on this channel. So if you are interested in them, I will put a link in the description below so you can go and check it out. So when I decide to buy anything and I see a bad packaging on that item, usually that also reflects in the product itself. Bad packaging kind of comes close to bad product. Not in any case, but in most cases. So if you have a good packaging, usually the product is also a lot better. And that's just my personal experience. It doesn't have anything to do about looks, but someone that cares about the finest details of their product actually put a lot of time and effort in them. And I kind of see that in this product. The packaging is truthfully amazing. It really has this kind of premium feel, and if you unbox this, you will see a little package where your filters are gonna be in. So if I open this up, these are the filters that come out of it, and as you can see on the side, they really look very premium, a very premium feel, and quality wise they don't jiggle at all or something if you shake with this glass, which is important. And genuinely, after testing these filters, I really found these to be my favorite ones at this point in time. Also, something really fun that I thought about, all my filters always get very dirty with dust because they attract a lot of dust. And so if you package them, they actually have this kind of cleaning cloth that actually is attached to this package, so you can actually never lose your cleaning cloths. And I'm terrible at that. I never have a cleaning cloth on me because I keep losing them or forgetting them on specific locations. But in this case, it's stuck. So it's a really small thing that might not seem like a lot, but if they're even thinking about this, you can already imagine how good the quality is and time and effort they've put into this lens. You can really see they have done this with a passion, and that's a very good thing. Alright, so the first filter we are going to be talking about is this circular polarized filter, and at first glance, this kind of looks like a darker transparent glass, which doesn't really do a lot. You have this wheel that you can spin around, that you can attach to your camera. So basically how it works, you have your lens, you should find a filter that is equal on the size of the diameter of your lens. So make sure it's the same size to fit on your lens. But if you have multiple lenses, try to find a filter for your biggest lens and then buy step down rings so you can mount that same filter on your smaller lenses. But so you attach this to your camera and then you spin this wheel. But if you're not familiar with a polarized filter, you won't really see a lot of difference depending on what you're actually filming. It actually has a very specific thing that it corrects, and that includes the indirect sunlight rays that you see on a bunch of things. For example, if you're filming a valley and if you're going to film that with a regular lens, you're going to see some kind of mist in that valley because the atmosphere is so far away and the indirect light hits that and makes it kind of a misty look. With a polarized filter, you can actually remove that by spinning on that filter. Also, if you point your camera in the opposite direction of the sun towards the sky and you rotate the polarized filter, you will notice that the sky becomes more saturated and a little bit darker. That really makes up that Hollywood sky look that you see in a bunch of movies. So it doesn't really work in every situation, like I said. It really depends on the angle your camera is pointing at. So if you would go straight to the sun and film the sun, change your polarized filter, you won't really notice a difference. But it does help a ton of times when you're looking into reflections, because reflections are also also indirect hits of the sunlight's light. So especially, for example, when you're making a photograph from water, water really has a very reflective surface. And in a lot of cases, for example, a case that I experienced myself, I was in Aleya, Spain, where I was at this port, and I saw these little fish coming closer to the top, and I thought it would be a great idea to photograph these. But when I looked at these fish, I could barely see them with my own eyes. So if I looked with a camera, it was even worse. And then I used this polarized filter to really tone down these reflections in the water, and I couldn't believe how crystal clear I could see these fish under the water, because I couldn't even notice that with my own eyes. And that's truthfully really amazing. It also makes everything look a little bit more stunning. For example, if you're doing automotive videography or photography, and you're filming this kind of red or blue color car, and you have this a bunch of reflections on that car, if you have indirect sunlight hitting that car and you spin your polarized filter, you can make that car look very vibrant and very different and cinematic, in my opinion, just using a simple filter on your lens. Also, if you have an actor sitting in the car and you're trying to film that actor in the car, you usually have a lot of reflection on the car window. Also, this filter gets rid of that. So there are a bunch of reasons why a polarized filter is amazing, but if you don't have a sunny day, it won't work as good or not even work at all. But that's not really a bad thing, because I actually leave my polarized filter on as much as I can if I shoot outdoors. For two reasons. If I can use it, great. If I can't use it, it also protects my glass from my actual lens. And my lens glass is a little bit more expensive than this filter. So if I break that filter, okay, I will have to buy a new filter, but I don't have to buy an entirely new lens. So it's also some kind of protection towards your stuff. Alright, so this filter is really amazing, and you can make your videos or photos richer, more vibrant, more contrasty, and all that great stuff to make up for that Hollywood look. Now let's talk about the ND filter. It does something completely different than the polarized filter, but it's also very necessary, especially outdoors. So if you've ever seen an ND filter or heard about an ND filter, they will have told you that it's basically like sunglasses for your lens, and that's kind of true. It really just darkens your lens and allows less light to come through. So you can do a lot of cool things with that, actually. So if you're not into the technical details about a camera and you don't really know about all these aperture and shutter speed things, I would definitely encourage you to really do your research on that, because if you want to do anything in photography or video, it's so essential that you know how your camera works, and just using audio isn't really gonna cut it. So I'm just going to go over all the technical details at this point in time. If you don't really understand it, just bear with me for a little bit. But first I'm going to talk about why an ND filter is interesting because of your shutter speed for your camera. And it actually works for both photo and video, but video actually needs an ND filter a little bit more than a photographer. It really depends on what you want to photograph, but we're going to talk about that later. Let's start with video. So if you're filming something, you usually record at a specific FPS. Let's say we're using 24 FPS. Your shutter speed should actually double that FPS, so it should be 48 shutter speed. The reason why is that makes up for the most realistic motion blur in movements in your shot. If you move your camera, if you have someone moving their hand, you will see that if the shutter speed is too high, you won't notice any motion blur. This is great if you want to slow down your footage very drastically with a kind of plugin, or if you're using a green screen effect, or if you're trying to achieve a specific effect that actually allows that to look cool or good. But in most case scenarios, this doesn't look good at all. The basic rule of thumb is to double your frame rate. So if you have 30 FPS, you would go for 60, 24, 48. And of course, if you can't go for 48, 50 is good enough, just as close as possible to the double of your FPS. Now, on the other hand, if it's too low, you will see a lot of motion blur, especially at night. You're going to see a lot of motion blur because you have plenty of lights. And this would work in some kind of scenarios, especially if you're using a tripod. You can do some really cool effects with that, but then first you have to understand the basic rule. So if you want to have your shutter speed at the correct setting on video, you can just use an ND filter to keep your shutter speed like it's supposed to be. Also, if you're doing photography and you're kind of trying to take a photo of a waterfall during a sunny day, you're going to try and photograph that, but you have to bump up your shutter speed to get a well-exposed image. An ND filter allows you to lower your shutter speed and get that really buttery smooth kind of water falling down the waterfall, which makes it look very beautiful and just very professional. Of course, you will need a tripod in order to do that, so you don't have any movements in your shot to make it crystal clear, but that's another story. Another reason why you should use ND filters is for your aperture and how wide open you can put your lens to be. So let's say you're outside and you're trying to make a close-up. You can close down your aperture as much as you can, so you allow as less light as possible to come into your camera and have a well-exposed video. But now everything is sharp. Both the foreground and the background is sharp, and that kind of looks a little bit amateuristic, especially in close-ups, and it really depends what you're trying to go for. But I really love a nice shallow depth of field because it creates a nice depth to your image. And if you want to make a video look good, try to layer it in depth, and depth of field is actually one of the best ways to do that. So again, if you want to open up your aperture as wide open, you will see an overexposed image if you want to keep your shutter speed perfectly. Of course, some people open it wide open, then increase the shutter speed to allow less light to come in, but then end up with wrong movements and wrong motion blur. So that's not what you want in video. So you're very limited in how much light comes into your camera as a videographer. For a photographer, that's a little bit easier because the shutter speed doesn't really matter that much, unless you want to film movement in a different specific way, like a waterfall, like I just said. So in this case, you would apply an ND filter again, and then open up your aperture as wide open to f1.8, and now we have a very nice shallow depth of field, even though we are in an outdoor situation, which is really cool. I personally love depth of field, especially during the day, because you immediately notice that it has been taken care of very professionally. Someone has been using an ND filter to create that shot, and everything looks a little bit richer, a little bit more beautiful, and I just love close-ups with a lot of depth of field. I'm so crazy about that nice bokeh and blurry background. It just makes it look so cinematic. So if you didn't understand anything about the shutter speed and the aperture that I've been mentioning, I would really encourage you to start learning about these things. Just look them up. They're so easy to understand. They take a little bit of practice, so you can try it out yourself, but it's really worth it, and it really pays off at the end. In my opinion, these filters are essential for videographers or even photographers. You have to have these in your arsenal. Really, it is a must. But one thing I want to mention before we finish this video is that you should really look into quality and not try to go in a cheaper model. It depends though, but just try to really be careful what quality filters you're using. Even if you're using a cheap lens or an expensive lens, imagine you're using a super expensive lens and you adapt a very cheap filter to that. It could actually damage the quality of your image. It could have a blurry effect, bad flaring and stuff like that. So you could have a bunch of problems. So really look into just investing your money in a quality filter. And if you don't have the money, it's better to save it a little bit longer until you can afford something that is really worth paying for, instead of just going for something that is cheap and you attach it to your camera and it starts shaking. I have had a ton of filters. I have tried a lot of them, and I really mean it. I have nothing to do with POLARPRO, but these filters are currently my absolute favorite ones. They look so premium. They don't shake at all. They have an amazing glass, an amazing quality of image. So really look into them. But another thing you have to be careful for is not only the price, but if you're going to look into an ND filter, you will find out that they also have a variable ND filters. And I used a bunch of variable ND filters in the past. I love them because you could actually lower the brightness that comes in or strengthen it. So you could really change how much light is getting into your lens on the go by also spinning that wheel on there. But I found that it really has a ton of artifacts, and it doesn't have to do anything with the quality or the price of the product. Something in the variable ND filters just makes it give that artifact because it works in that specific way. It's not a one set ND filter, so it doesn't really work. Especially in photography, if you do long shutter photos, you will see a bunch of artifacts and shadows in the wrong parts of your image. Also in the depth of field, in your shallow depth of field, the blur, you will see that the The contrast is not good. You will see plenty of artifacts, and also if you're just filming during the day, it will have a less contrasty look, a little bit of a flat image. So I'm not a fan anymore of variable ND filters. While I was in the past, I didn't want to have a one set ND filter because that seemed just too much work. You have to screw it off and screw another one on if you want it to be more intense or less intense. It's true, it's a little bit more work, but I'm so glad I actually dumped my variable ND filters for that. So that's just a peace of mind that I want to give you guys if you're looking into this. I made the mistake to have plenty of variable ND filters, which I don't use right now anymore because I actually learned the hard way that they actually suck. That's why I'm telling you that right now. Of course, that's my personal opinion, but if you do some research, you will find out that it's actually true. So I'm not trying to sell you off to something bad here. But anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give this video a like. Also be sure to subscribe to the channel for more, and definitely check out our website. We have a bunch of templates and presets for filmmakers, photographers, or motion graphics artists. All the links will be in the description, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.